Welcome to Old Guy Tech,
the OGT.TV recording studio.
Technology for the rest of us.
Hey, this is Rob with Old Guy Tech TV Interviews, and today we have with us Vicki Ashworth, running for judge in El Dorado County, and this is April 18th, 2014, and we are very fortunate to have you, Vicki, in the studio. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob.
I really appreciate it. And you know, I always start out with all our people running for office in that, thank you for running, because it's literally without people like yourself willing to put everything out on the line, stump for months, eat every rubber chicken and shake every hand that you can, the process doesn't work. And what I try to encourage those that don't vote is understand that their vote counts. You know, there's a lot of people that claim they're disenfranchised and that their vote doesn't count. And it's not true, and particularly at a local level. So it takes people like Vicki to run for office, and your vote does count. Trust me. So anyway, Vicki, thank you again for coming in. And why don't we start out a little bit talking about yourself and how you started and why you decided to become an attorney and what you've been doing all these years. And let's let the audience know a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Again, my name is Vicki Ashworth, and I have been an attorney for just over 16 years now. I started off with the Amador County District Attorney's Office. I was there for about 2 years, and then I was hired on with El Dorado County. I've been here since 1999. I was hired shortly after my daughter was born, and from there, I've handled, in the district attorney's office, I've handled everything from misdemeanor offenses to special circumstance homicide cases. Of course, in Amador County, I started off with a misdemeanor caseload and quickly moved up to a felony caseload that involved a lot of grants and such.
Okay. Where'd you go to law school?
I went to law school in McGeorge in Sacramento.
Yeah, yes. that's like the number one in this area.
It is. It's the popular institution to attend.
Yeah.
And so I actually started law school thinking that I wanted to go into contract law.
Oh, sure.
Quickly took a contract class my first year and decided that wasn't for me.
You have to have a specific mindset for that. If you can do it, make some big bucks.
Yes. I like the draw of criminal law. Things change every day. There are no two cases that are the same.
Right.
And I like that. I like the different challenges that you have, the different issues that you're faced with in every case, and having to think on your toes when you're in court a lot.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
It's very, very interesting.
You know, I find criminal law very, very interesting and I don't know how much you know about me. I'm a very pro Second Amendment guy, and I teach concealed weapons courses for the Sheriff's Department. And so we get a lot of discussions on, legality and how the individuals are supposed to apply the laws properly. And I spend a lot of time with that. And it's very interesting to hear either the misconceptions or some of the ideas that people have. And my goal is, of course, is that if it's a careless mistake, I want to make sure you don't make it.
Right.
That's the whole idea.
Right.
And we want to keep honest people honest. And if we're going to apply a law, make sure it's to a bad guy.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure that you've come across it as well, is just educating people.
Absolutely.
As well.
That's what it's all about. And I actually enjoy it. I have a good time educating, running the class and going through it. And it's something always new. So that's exciting. And I can see why you would like criminal law, because it can be, I'm sure there's times where it's tedious and everything, but it can be exciting. I can understand that for certain. So what was your main reason for wanting to run for judge?
Actually, a couple of different reasons. So one of the reasons is being a deputy district attorney for as long as I have been, it has really been about public service for me. From the time that I graduated from law school, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be involved in my community, and that's what I take that very seriously. And so for now, I've reached that level where I'm experienced enough, yet young enough to have many more years on the bench. So for this time in my life, it's the right time to take that step forward and to further serve my community in that capacity. The other aspect is that we have a couple of judges that are retiring, of course. We have Judge Proud, who is retiring, as well as Judge Phemister.
Right.
And it's Judge Phemister's seat that I'm seeking election. And both of those gentlemen have brought with them some background in criminal law
Right.
to the bench. And so with their retirements, it's really leaving a void on the bench, if you will, with some balance. And that's what I seek to bring to the court, is to maintain that balance between those judges that have a civil law background and those that have some criminal law background.
Right.
So that you keep that bench balanced and you are an asset still to those that are sitting on the bench as far as your knowledge and the resources that you have.
So I could see that being very important. I guess an attorney that did nothing but corporate law probably wouldn't be a good fit for a judge. It takes some experience like you have, I think, to do a good job on the bench. And I've been lucky enough to know Judge Phemister for a long time, and he's quite the knowledge. He really is something.
He's a wonderful man. So.
Yeah, he really is. He's a good guy, and God bless him. And I'm glad he's going to enjoy his retirement and play with his cattle like he likes to do on his farm. And
he will.
It'll be really good. Off the topic, of course. So what do you think is the most important issue facing the courts today?
Well, there's a couple, but one of the issues, of course, are the years of constant budget cuts. Of course, we've all faced our budget cuts, but the court has been cut somewhere in the area of $500 million or more.
Yeah, it's a huge number, I understand.
It is a huge number. Yeah. And that in turn has reduced the number of services that are also available to the citizens. That ends up looking like reduced window hours for people to be able to file documents and to get assistance if it's needed. So that's one of the big challenges. And I believe along with that comes some technological difficulties, if you will.
Right.
Some of our neighboring counties, such as Sacramento, Placer, they have some of their records online with their court system. And we have some that are online, but the court, unfortunately, hasn't kept up with the rest of the technology, if you will. And I think that hinders the court in some respects as well.
I would think so. I mean, you hear of people that are when you get involved with any case, your life is tied into that world.
Yes.
And of course you want to make sure that it moves as quickly and smoothly as possible. And I would assume that if we're behind the times on the technology side, that just lengthens everything that goes down. Plus, of course, you've got quite a large caseload.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the judges in this county, actually, according to a study that the AOC did, the Administrative Office of the Courts, they did it back in 2011, found that in our county, each of the judges on average are handling over 3,500 cases a year. So you really have to be efficient in your handling of the cases. You have to be knowledgeable of the cases that are before you so that you can deal with them and they don't just stagnate, but they reach some resolution and they can, so that everybody gets that resolution in their case and it doesn't just linger on.
So, being decisive on the bench is probably a very good thing. I mean, you need to make your decisions, make the proper decisions, and move it along, because otherwise everything just gets terribly backed up.
Correct.
Okay.
You really do, but part of being decisive is to also make an informed decision.
Correct.
So you have to listen to those people that are in front of you as well and give them that opportunity to be heard, as well as submit the materials that are relevant to the case. But then, yes, once you have that information in front of you, to make a decision. Yeah, we've seen many examples of unfortunate judges that they just won't make a decision, and I don't know if what they're afraid of. I mean, many times there's an appeal process that can take place. Make your decision and just do it. Yes, there is an appeal process, and it's sitting on the bench. It's not something that you can be overly worried about. Understood. You're human. You're right. But you do have to make a decision. And make a timely decision. Hopefully, because and it doesn't matter if it's civil.
I mean, everybody in your life, you live old enough, you're going to be involved with a little something. I mean, I've been involved in a couple of small little civil issues, and it like takes your life. You know, you kind of go, you know, you're scared to death of it, you know, and
Right.
so no matter what level, I can't imagine what it must be in the you know, the death penalty cases, or
Right.
it must just be incredible.
Well, and something to realize when you are sitting on the bench is the case that's in front of you may be only one of 100 that you have on that day, but for the people that are appearing on that case, it's the only one for them.
Right. Right.
You have to be cognizant of that to some degree.
Sure.
And understanding that you still have a big calendar to get through, but also have to have
Yeah.
or give due consideration.
So how did judges have time to sleep? I mean, honest.
Probably like me,
Yeah,
quite frankly.
You know, because my goodness, the caseload is so high. I just, you guys are doing magic. I mean, really, and in both sides too. So, as a prosecutor, do you see any potential conflicts moving in as a judge?
There is always, being a prosecutor, there's always a window of time where there's a conflict of interest in handling criminal cases, if you will. That's particularly because for myself, I'm in Judge Femister's court now.
Okay.
So I'm handling general felonies, which means every felony that our office files here on the West Slope in Placerville starts off in Department 7.
Okay.
So for a period of time, there is a conflict because those cases that I've appeared on, of course, I wouldn't be able to hear as a judge.
I see.
And Judge Wagner, when he was elected almost 12 years ago, because he came from the district attorney's office as
Sure.
well, of course, he went through that period of time.
Yeah.
But now he's back up in the criminal division
So,
as a trial
couple
judge.
of years, everything gets enough time to wash through.
Usually about
supposedly?
a year and a half to 2
Okay.
years gives some time for the cases to work their way through the system.
Right.
In the meantime, it doesn't necessarily mean that I will end up in a civil court. Of course, it's always up to the presiding judge
Right.
to determine where everybody will be assigned once the election is done.
Right.
But with the knowledge that I have, I can go into family law, I could go into the juvenile court, which has, obviously,
Oh, yeah.
both courts have some crossover with the criminal, where my background and knowledge can be an asset to the bench.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about it, you'll be working no matter what happens.
Yes. No, there's no shortage of cases
Yeah.
for us to handle, so.
So, a little off the topic again, looking at the prosecutor's office, the caseloads seem so high. Now, you're a deputy DA, you're not the assistant, right?
Correct.
Okay. On average, how many cases are you handling yourself?
Myself, again, I'm in Judge Femister's court,
Right.
and so I'm there every Monday and Wednesday, and this Monday coming, for instance, in the morning alone, I have 83 cases that are on, and for the entire day, there's somewhere around 150 cases on for that day, and they're
Wow.
all felony cases. So for myself, Department 7 has been my assignment for the past year and a half or so. I have grown accustomed to handling a large volume of cases and been able to work my way through the cases efficiently and to either move them through that department. Of course, if the other side is working with me
Right.
and in agreement,
Right.
then we can get the case sent up to the trial department or get it resolved, whatever it needs to do. But yes, I'm no stranger
Yeah.
to a very
Large.
voluminous caseload.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So what would you say is the percentage? I never even asked this question before. I don't know why not. The percentage of cases that actually go to trial versus being settled out. I mean,
It's a
I'm
good-
assuming to make the whole court system work, you really don't want to go to trial a whole lot, right? You want to try to get this resolved prior,
If you can.
if you can.
Some cases will not reach a resolution
Understood.
for whatever reason.
Right.
I would say probably less than 20%, definitely, of the cases actually go
Go
to
to trial.
Of the cases that are in El Dorado County, again, according to that study that the AOC did, 80% of our cases are criminal in nature, and 75% of our trials are criminal in nature.
Wow. Well, it keeps you guys busy.
It does. It does keep us busy.
Let's talk about, because this seems to be a big topic in El Dorado County, is facilities, the actual courtrooms in that situation. I know that so much money has been siphoned off from the state that it makes it very difficult to have a court complex, so to speak, and that the court buildings are spread out all over El Dorado County.
They are.
So, I don't understand how, I should understand how, but it seems like the money that was put aside or earmarked, shall we say, for courts was siphoned off and used in the general fund. Is that correct?
I don't know if it was used for the general fund, but it certainly has been cut.
Okay.
As we've seen over the last several years with the budget cuts by the state. And so that has, when I got here 14 and a half years ago, Judge Keller was on the bench.
Right.
And at the time, he had shown me some plans for a courthouse and said, no, we're getting a new courthouse. We're getting a new courthouse. And it was very exciting. And and he was very involved in that process, as were other judges at the time. So the point is that from the time that I got here 14 and a half years ago, or started my position, I've been hearing that there's a new courthouse coming, there's a new courthouse coming. And unfortunately, it just keeps getting pushed down the line by the state. I do know that the judges in the county have been involved and keeping us at least up there for consideration and not being completely ignored or dropped, if you will, that it is still a necessity in the county. As you pointed out, we have a courtroom in Cameron Park. We have the juvenile court that's across from the sheriff's department, and that's also traffic. We have Department 7 also down there. We have Main Street. So for citizens of the county, it becomes difficult in trying to file different paperwork. Which building do you have to be at? Where do you have to go? So it's not necessarily the most efficient.
It seems like you could open yourself up for an awful lot of duplication of work. Somehow I also see, it could be a lot of savings if everybody could be under one roof. You remove that duplication. Your staff could be more efficient.
Sure.
So hopefully, I know that the sheriff is pushing for a new sheriff's facility, and then maybe something in the future could be worked together. Maybe to save some money on just the transportation of prisoners and the allocations of bailiffs between the sheriff's department and the courthouse. There's probably room for savings in there.
Well, and of course, any court construction really does need to consider the safety of everybody in the courthouse as well. Right now, our courts are not necessarily made for housing or keeping people that are in custody while their case is pending. So that becomes difficult as well.
Yeah, I would imagine it could be a very dangerous situation. You got to protect everybody in the court, and you got to make sure it's done right. So I can see where the tie-in with the sheriff's department would be really important. Make sure that's done really well. So let's talk about what do you think is the number one issue facing courts in the court system today? Do you think it's facilities, or do you think there's something else going on?
Well, I think the facilities really blend in again with the budget. That's, I think right now, that is probably the hardest thing facing the courts right now.
Right.
The
budgets would be tough, and I have not had the time to study exactly the money flow and how fines are collected and do they get into the right place. I know for a short period of time I was on the Fish and Game Commission, and we tried to look and trace where the fines were going, and it was literally, we went to the courts one time to go through that very antiquated computer system to try to make sure that the fine monies were being put in the right place.
Right.
And we found a lot of times they weren't. And it was just crazy. And so when you mentioned The problem with the software and the computer system, I wholeheartedly agree there's an issue there.
Right.
Yeah.
There can be difficulties. And you mentioned about fines.
Yeah.
This day and age where a $100 fine, if the court imposes a $100 fine, it's actually going to cost someone $680.
Right.
And there are about 12 different places that money actually goes
Right.
from that $100, and it's
Yeah.
all based on a percentage, so it's all broken up.
And it has to go in the right
Yes.
spot. And
Yes.
and what we found is that many times it wasn't, and it wasn't done for any other reason that they misunderstood some of the steps and the keys. I don't know. It was really silly, but I can see where the mistakes were made. So a little bit of one of the things that running for office is in being a judge, still also makes you a bit of a politician. So how do you find this campaigning? I mean, this is something probably different for you.
It is different.
Yeah.
It is, because as a prosecutor, of course, I've spent my years in the courtroom and not out there drumming up business, if you will.
Right,
It's not.
right.
I don't mean to put it that way, but
Yeah, but
something to that.
you're trying to get people to vote for you. So
Yes.
I mean, it's got to be a whole different thing.
It is a very different thing. It's difficult, especially in a judge's position, because for the most part, the general public doesn't have contact with the judicial system,
Right.
and that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
But so part of running for this particular office is also educating the public about why it is that you care about who the judge is that's on the bench and how that can help the county and such. So that part of it has been great. Getting out to meet people that I wouldn't have otherwise met
Right.
has been wonderful as well. So, but it is kind of an oxymoron trying to run for office and be a politician, if you will, and yet you're not really expected or wanted to be a politician.
Yeah, many people, Chris, there's appointments to the bench as well.
Yes.
But when you talk to people about judges actually having to run, sometimes you get this odd look, right? What do you mean they got to run? Believe it or not,
Yes,
noise.
and particularly right after the election, of course, you have to pull back, and because you want not only the appearance, but in actuality for you to be fair and impartial, and for the bench to be that way.
Right.
So I think that's why a lot of people probably shake their head that a judge has to run for office.
Sure. Yeah,
So.
absolutely.
And speaking of the appointment process, I've actually gone through that as well.
Oh, is that right? How so?
Yes. I went through it 2010 when a new position opened up in the county. The state had awarded the county a new judge position. So you actually fill out a very lengthy questionnaire application and submit it. And then the Jenny Commission, the Commission on Judicial Nominees Evaluation, gets your packet, and they go through and they solicit comments from the legal community, those that may know you or should know you. And from there, it results in, I believe it was about a 3.5 hour interview with two people that were assigned to me.
Right.
And then after that, those two people that make up part of the commission present your case to the full commission. The full commission then votes on whether you should be forwarded to the governor's office for an interview. So I made it through that process, and I actually made it to the governor's office for an interview as well.
Wow.
So I've been through both processes.
Which governor did you face?
Schwarzenegger? Yes.
How was that?
I interviewed with the judicial secretary, so I didn't actually interview with him.
Boy, I bet that could have been, that had my heart racing, and that type of thing.
It was a very interesting process as well.
Yeah, I imagine it was. Well, good for you. That's great.
Thank you.
That's kind of neat. So what do you think? Well, first of all, have you had debates yet with the other candidates? Has that come along?
With judge candidates, they're not really considered debates. They are candidate forums.
Okay.
Because, again, as we talked earlier,
right.
judge candidates can't really comment on certain things that
Right.
might come before you when you're
Right.
sitting on the bench. So they're not really debates, it's forums, and you answer questions. But yes, we have had a couple of them already.
Okay, good. So let's say all the stars align up and you're elected. What do you think is the first things that you're going to concentrate on?
On the bench,
Yeah.
getting my feet wet, obviously, and learning the aspect of law from a different perspective, if
Yeah.
you will. So my job has been, so far, knowing the facts about a case and making decisions. And as a judge, you take a step back because you don't have all the police reports and everything that comes along with the case. And so you're really reliant upon the attorneys that are appearing before you to be prepared and be knowledgeable on the cases that they have. So for me, I'm just excited at the prospect to learn something new and to have that new challenge. So I'm very excited about the entire process and then learning another aspect.
Yeah, I see. For me, that would be the exciting part too, the learning the new stuff and the whole different angle. I can totally understand that.
And that's one of the things that I like about my job now is that I always learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Everything, there's always something that you can learn.
I bet there is.
There is.
I bet there is. Yeah. There's so much to learn out there all the time. I make a simple little comment, even being a CCW instructor for the Sheriff's Department. One of the things I dearly love is the education portion of it and the discussions that go on
Right.
with that. Something new every time. I've been doing it for 30 years, and every class there's something new.
Yes.
It's kind of neat. And I feel a personal obligation to make sure that people know the laws and try not to make mistakes. Sometimes people simply make mistakes because they're not
Sure.
educated. So we want to make sure they are.
Yes.
Would you feel comfortable in commenting on the Second Amendment?
In what respect?
Do you believe in in our Bill of Rights and the Constitution we have the Second Amendment?
Yes.
Do you believe in that Second Amendment? Do you think it's written properly? Do you think there should be a change? I mean, because that seems to be a topic right now that's coming up.
It is a topic. I will say that the Second Amendment is obviously in the Constitution, and I do support the Second Amendment. Whether or not it should be changed, it's probably not for this forum.
Yeah, probably not. Huh? I was a little taken back, and I think it was Justice Stevens that made a suggestion which totally didn't make any sense. But I certainly hope we don't go back and try to add different languages to all the constitutions. I think it is what it is, and we deal with it. But it scares me a little bit when we start looking at the situations that can take place. I mean, you're a constitutional officer. You swear an oath to the Constitution and to
Yes.
support it. So,
Yes.
may it be, the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, Third, 15th, whatever, you have to look at that, I would think, as a judge, and that's really kind of your guide to where you make your decision.
Yes.
You look at that Constitution, you go,
do.
tell me if I'm wrong here, but that you look at it and you say, okay, how does this apply, and where I make my decision. I mean, is
Right.
that correct?
Yes, you look at the law as it stands, and you apply that law to the set of facts that are before you,
Yeah.
and make a decision.
So how is it possible? What amazes me is we have so many laws, and not only federal laws but state laws. And I joke around a lot of times. I think that we should have our state senate and assembly people, for every bill they want to pass, they need to take 2 off the books. Because how can you possibly keep passing these laws time after time, and how do you possibly stay up on these things?
Well, we receive, in the district attorney's office, we receive a legislative update. So every year we get a book
Yeah.
that tells us what has changed. The latest thing by the legislator was to renumber
Tell me
our
about
weapons.
it. Tell me about it.
All of our
Yeah.
weapons codes,
Yeah.
and which threw us all for a loop, because for the longest time we're dealing with 12020 of the Penal Code, and now we're looking at 25 or
Me too.
29800 of the Penal Code.
I can't make it's
It's all over the place.
Why did they do that?
I don't know.
Nobody.
I wish I knew.
It's so funny. I've talked to many attorneys, and I actually called DOJ just out of a whim, going, "Do you have any idea why they did that?" And everybody says the same thing. Well, we're not really sure. It's like,
don't know.
I don't know. After 30 years of looking at 2106 and all the other numbers, you kind of go, I'm too old to remember a new one.
Right. Now I have to remember to go over here. Yes.
Yeah.
I would say that of the changes that they made recently, breaking out the 245 section, the assault, assault with a deadly weapon or assault by means of force likely to produce GBI, great bodily injury, they actually broke that out so that it makes it clearer. So that there is a 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if you have assault by means of force likely to produce great bodily injury, that's in one section. If you have assault with a deadly weapon, that's another section. Assault with a firearm is another section. And the reason I say that that was actually a good change is because assault by means of force likely to produce great bodily injury is not necessarily a strike offense, but assault with a deadly weapon, the knife or a firearm, is a strike offense under the 3 strikes law. And so reading through rap sheets and trying to understand that, it actually makes it
a little clearer.
It does.
Yeah, and I can understand that. Because in my presentation, my PowerPoint, I point out those codes, and of course I had to hunt them down. But I understand exactly what you mean.
Yes.
It does make it a little clearer. So
It
that really is a good thing. So just we're going to be wrapping it up here pretty quick. How would you describe yourself philosophically?
Wow, philosophically.
Yeah, just
I'm a thinker, and I like to dig into things. I like to know what it is that I'm facing.
Right.
So I will look at facts, but listen as well. The more knowledge that you have, the better off you can be.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's kind of been the way that I've approached my cases even now. And I would say the same philosophy would be on the bench, that the more knowledge that I have, the better off I am. Does that mean that I need police reports or something to make a decision? Absolutely not. Yeah. But when I take the bench, I will be knowledgeable about the cases that are on calendar for that day, what has already happened and what needs to be done that particular day, so that that case can move forward. I don't think it's fair to any of the parties for me to have to sit there and try to get to know, what did we do a month ago on this case? Right. I should already know that and be able to move forward from there. Right.
So then, how is the staffing level to help out? Obviously, staff's extremely important for the judges.
It is extremely important, yes.
Yeah. And has there been a cutback on staffing, or are we doing okay?
There have been some cutbacks on staff, and so, but the staff that work for the courts now are wonderful. They're incredibly knowledgeable. They care about their positions. They take their job seriously for the ones that I've worked with. Right. And that makes all the difference in the world.
It would have to.
You could ask any of the judges that are sitting now, and their clerk is their right-hand person when they're on the bench, and you rely on that person a lot, and the amount of knowledge that they have to have is incredible as well.
I would
as
imagine
far as the
so.
Inner workings and such.
Well, let's hope there's not any more cutbacks in that, because with your caseload, I couldn't see it running efficiently without that.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Well, Vicki, we're at a point now basically where I just say, hey, you know what? Why don't you just get your message out and talk to the audience, and we'll just kind of wrap it up here.
Okay. Well, I didn't explain a little bit earlier, but what I would like to tell everybody is I'm married. My husband is a captain with the Sheriff's Department. We have 2 kids that we've raised here in the county. Our daughter is a freshman at Ponderosa. Our son, who's my stepson, but my son has started Folsom Lake College. He just came back from service in the Army.
Wow.
And so I'm very proud to have their support through this entire process, which really means a lot to me. And so thank you, everybody.
I happen to know your husband, so.
Yeah. I figured you did with the CCWs.
Right.
And then just moving forward, I would appreciate your support and your votes. I'm very honored to be endorsed by the El Dorado County Deputy Sheriff's Association. I've been endorsed by Judge Proud as well as Judge Wagner and retired Judge Eddie Keller, as well as, of course, Vern Pearson with my office, John McGinnis, who was former Sacramento County Sheriff, of course, and a number of others throughout the community. And the support that I have has really humbled me through this experience.
I find that to be the case. I mean, it is amazing, and boy, when everything's focused on you, and people. People are willing to help you out. That's very humbling. And
it is.
I'm glad to hear that you're getting that help.
It is, and I'm very honored by that. So.
Yes, that's great. Why don't we tell them your website? What do you got here?
Okay. The website is www.ashworth, ASHWORTH, 4, it's the number 4, judge.com.
Perfect.
Yes.
And I'm sure you have a donate button somewhere on there. And so
like the rest of them, yes,
of
there is a contribute now button.
We're no different. We run a donation model here. So once the election's over with and you win, we'll be sending you a little please donate card.
It's okay. I still get it from McGeorge and my undergraduate school
good, yes.
as well, so you can throw it in.
There you go. We'll put it in there as well. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's been great. I'm really glad that you took advantage of this and we got to meet.
Yes.
I've heard a lot about you, and it's great. I'm really happy to meet you. And
Thank you.
Again, I'm so serious. Thank you for running, really.
Thank you.
That's what makes the whole system what it is.
Yes,
so
it
that's
does.
great. Very
but
good.
thank you for the support that you show the candidates as well. And it means a lot for us to be able to speak to the audience and to get our word out as well.
Well, that's sweet. Thank you very much. We really try. And our philosophy is, like I said, we don't put our slant on anything. We want everybody to get their message out, not my message, their message.
Right.
And we're glad to be here. So
Yes.
we're going to wrap it up really quick. And hey, this is Rob with Old Guy Tech TV Interviews. And today we had Vicki Ashworth with us. And look, your vote counts. So don't forget that when it comes up to the primary, that you take the time to vote. And hey, hit those donation buttons, Old Guy Tech and Vicki. We both need money, okay? Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. This is Rob with Old Guy Tech TV. Stay well.